This is Cruecast, a podcast about the most infamous band in rock history, Motley Crue. Your resident crew head, Jason, here with you. Thank you for listening, of course, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get podcasts. And hey, give us a follow on social media. It's at Cruecast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And back from Jesse's Customs, the man who paints Vince Neil's guitars, of course, on the stadium tour. Jesse, what's going on, my brother?
Hey, Jason, how's it going, man?
Oh, dude, I'm hanging in there. It's we're running wild, the whole thing. But it's not in the streets, thank God. But man,
right.
Just working this stuff. And I got to tell you, so my brother, he's listens to all the Cruecast. He's really liking the longer stuff, and he really dug the talk with you. And he goes, "Hey, your brother's a really good graphic artist and designer, done a lot of racing. How come I didn't get a shout out?" And I was like, "Wait, you didn't?" So I'm guessing we talked about my brother doing similar work, never for bands, but before we hit record.
Yeah, you're right. It was either before or after, but yep. Because that was the thing too. I wasn't sure when I went back and I listened to it. Like, what did we talk about? Like, it didn't go on there,
Yeah. I almost spit my coffee out. Well, hey, we got a cool topic one you came up with. We're going to do our top 5 album covers and why. And we were debating, we were going to start with top 10, but then we were like, well, but do you include this album, or what if we go just albums? And we couldn't get it to where it was an even 10 albums. So we went, okay, just top 5 all album covers. We're throwing it out there. And we're going to stick with just the artwork on this, though. Just the artwork. Yeah. We're not digging into the songs, what's on there that kind of supplements that. So just the artwork, maybe what hit us about it in R5. And you're the guest, Jesse. So go ahead and throw out your 5th favorite album artwork from Motley Crue.
5th favorite. Should have been more prepared. So the other way here.
Well, I turned on the recording and went, hey, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah. So 5th, I know my top 1, 2, 3. I would say 5th would probably be Too Fast for Love.
Too Fast for Love.
Too Fast for Love.
Why is that?
Well, it's a photograph first off, so it's not really artwork. So that's kind of making me lean towards being an artist and all that. But like, I like the way that it used the photo of Vince from the back. It's a nod to Rolling Stone's Sticky Fingers,
right? Which
is probably my favorite. I think is the best Rolling Stones album. Huge Mick Taylor fan. So that's a couple. That's more than one reason, right?
You can give as many reasons as you want.
Yeah, and I guess I actually like the Elektra version better. I like the way the Motley Crue is bigger in the red as opposed to the leather pressings, which are black and white, and then the smaller version of it up in the corner, and then the smaller red version. So I kind of would go with the Elektra version with the bigger logo, and that'd be my number 5.
All right, dropping in at number 5 for me here. This might surprise some people, but it's New Tattoo. I love the dragon wrapped around the tattoo needle. And I think it also, for me, at the time, Crue wasn't really in the lexicon of pop. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It was kind of when people like, you like what? And, I like all the albums, of course, but we're not talking about the content of it. And so at the time, as when I was first starting to get tattoos, and they had put it online, Motley Crue, like, hey, you want to get this tattooed? Here's the stencil. And I went to like 15 different fucking tattoo artists. And they're like, yeah, I'll do that, man. Where do you tattoo? And I'm like, I don't. And at the time, I guess there was a thing, or at least where I lived, no one would tattoo a tattoo needle unless you were a tattoo artist. And so I always told myself, eventually I'll get it. But it was kind of that point in my life, the fandom of tattoo art, a lot of the traditional stuff. I love the dragons, everything else. I thought the way they did the tattoo needle, the Japanese kanji style writing with everything. So I just thought it was a real cool way to kind of put it together. And of course, the stuff that was going on with the band, Tommy not there, Randy Castillo in. So it's just kind of a cool time where you know, people were kind of bagging on me being a Motley Crue fan still, and then they went and saw them with me, and they're like, "Oh, okay, I get it." So I think it's just, yeah, that really popped out to me. I thought it was a cool, creative, just simplistic. Here it is.
Yeah, agreed, totally.
Yeah, and I don't remember who did the design for that. That's it. I'm drawing a blank.
Again, not being prepared. I wanted to have all the artists. Bluebelly Studios. He's on Instagram.
Okay.
And Facebook. I am friends with him. He did the artwork on that, and also another album, which is on my list. And I want to say it's Eric. I can't remember his last name. I'm sorry, dude.
Hey,
if you're out there listening, man, I'll give you props on it when I post something about this online. But yeah, he did a really great job in the video for Hell on High Heels.
Yep, the animated one.
His artwork, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I know, dude. I feel like a dick too for not remembering who the hell designed it. But hey, yeah. And the funny thing too, of course, that story about the album artwork was inspired by Bruce Dickinson's album "Tattooed Millionaire."
Right.
Of course, which in the dirt, Mickey Six reveals having banged his wife, so it was kind of
well, and that song is written about Mickey Six.
Oh, that's right.
Tattooed Millionaire is like a fuck you to Nikki for that, and I didn't know that until later on. I didn't know that even until I think probably until after I read the dirt, and then it came up that was who that song was about, and I had no idea.
Oh man, the depth that, you know, people think Motley Crue is such a surface band until you really start to dig into it, like we're going to do throughout the podcast, and it's like, no, there's a lot of layers to this for sure.
Yep. So I have his name right here. Bluebelly Studios, Eric, ERIK Casillas.
Casillas. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now we got it. Okay. Eric Casillas, man. But yeah, it's funny how there was so much depth of what that was. And then we get the story. That's one of the things that's fun about Motley Crue. Is always reminds me of, I forget the photographer's name in one of the documentary things, probably VH1 Behind the Music, where other bands are like, no, stay away. And Nikki Sixx would be like, hey, we got a ton of strippers in here. Get the camera. Let's go. You know?
I think that was Ross Halfin.
Yeah.
Actually, he was at the Fenway show that I was at.
Really?
Like, right in front of me. And I didn't even know until he started posting the photos. And I was like, oh man, like, it's an iconic rock photographer. Right?
Oh yeah.
He was at that show.
So many great photos that dude's gotten. That would be an interesting. Let's go after him, Jesse. We got to talk with him.
Yeah. Yeah. Him and Zlaz is Niels Lazova. He's another great photographer that has some probably crazy stories.
Oh, I'm sure. All right. You're number 4.
Okay, my number 4 is Greatest Hits.
Mine too.
First album. Sorry, not first album, first version of the Greatest Hits. That they've released it with like the Saints of Los Angeles artwork on it, and I think that's the current one on there now.
Right.
Minus Bitter Pill and I don't know what's the other song that's on there. There was another new song that they put on that didn't make the cut, but the original Greatest Hits, which when did that come out? 98.
That sounds right. Yeah, and it had that cool when it was the like brown bag look to it.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And that again, Eric got Bluebelly Studios did the artwork for that, and I painted that a couple times on some guitars for customers. Really, really cool. And I've always been a fan of that character artwork. Really envious of that. I wish I could do that. Make cartoon versions of people that just, you pick out the characters and just enhance them and make them look really cool.
Yeah,
so
I didn't like the later where they redid it and it was red, and then I know there's like a European version that I think is just black and white, and yeah, there's something about the brown bag look with the red stamp Motley Crue's Greatest Hits.
And then the back cover has the medicine cabinet.
Yep.
With, all kinds of just cool, just stuff you're looking into it. It's kind of like an old school it had like a 70s vibe, I thought too, because there was bands that, you know, would have that hand-drawn artwork and the back with the photograph of the medicine cabinet. Yeah, I don't know, just there was a lot of thought put into it. There was like an art director involved in putting it all together, like a good packaging.
Yeah.
I want to say that's probably, if you think about it, the last one out of my top five, the latest one that I like, because you know, Saints of Los Angeles was kind of,
Yeah.
it was all right. But
I mean, it was cool. I get the stylized stuff, but maybe we'll throw out an honorable mention before our number.
yeah,
But yeah, no, greatest hits was October 27th, 1998 when we got that first one. And yeah, it was just, I agree with you. It was just that cool tattered look. There was something about it that it just still felt really Motley, you know?
mm-hmm.
All right. So let's jump to number 3 on our list. We both had the same for number 4, but let's see if we differ here for number 3. Go ahead. Number 3.
Number 3 for me is New Tattoo.
Oh,
yeah, that was again, Eric's art, just love it, man. It was cool colors, the tattoo design, like you said, it was the dragon wrapped around the tattoo, which was loosely based off of, I think, Nicky's forearm tattoo, which I have. There's a dragon wrapped around a music note,
right.
This was a dragon and I believe Lita Ford, while she was dating Nicky, got a similar tattoo she has on her, shoulder breastplate, a dragon wrapped around a guitar silhouette. So similar to Nicky. So I don't know if they got them at the same time or not, but yeah, it made me think of that. And like we were talking before with the video, I thought that video was cool. I think there was a Metallica one at the time. That was around the Napster days when it was like they were making fun of Lars and James with that artwork.
Yeah, they gave Lars, if people have never seen it, it's a little bit harder to find now, but where they did the James is just Napster bad, and Lars is like, look, we're like worth $27 million, and he's got this really bad lisp, and it's like, oh man. And on one hand, you kind of hate seeing some of your favorite bands feud. On the other hand, it was hilarious. It really was.
Yeah, and back then I sided with the fans back then and thought, but now hindsight, I get where they were going with it,
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where you look at it differently when you look back on it,
Yeah, it is kind of funny how we do reflect on that, because it's like, yeah, these new bands, especially with how it's changed. And I forget, I think it was Gene Simmons was talking about his daughter, Sophie Simmons, and she had put out her song and it was on iTunes and it got something like 7 million, 8 million listens, and she got something like $8,000 or something at most. And it's like, wow, yeah. Crazy how it's changed. And I know you're like me, Jesse, you still like the big rock show. I mean, heck, that's why we go, and you already saw the stadium tour. Why I'm going to go see it is to still see these big, huge, bombastic rock shows. And it's like, this shit takes a lot of money to pull off, man.
Yep. Yeah. Could you imagine a band getting paid whatever the percent every time like the radio station played their song? That's kind of the equivalent of a stream. It's just easier to narrow it down now. But like back in the late 80s and early 90s, every time a radio station played a song, if that was like a download or a stream, there's no way of keeping track of that. Even like before, I don't know how they kept track of album sales before SoundScan. Because I know like I've always wondered that now when you go back and you look at album sales, how pre-SoundScan, how accurate album sales really were,
Yeah. Oh, I know so many bands had to have been ripped off,
Mm-hmm.
For sure. And it hasn't, being a guy that worked in radio, it was pretty interesting because the way, the bigger stations, it was automatically a song spun, record label saw it. But for the markets that I work in, I had to report it, like get online, print out a paper of everything we played that week, and then go in and put it in there for new music. As far as older music, they took a 2-day period that they scanned. So there was no way to accurately tell every time we played something. Of course, it would be incredibly expensive for a small market radio station. So it's kind of
Right.
on one hand a good thing, on the other hand not so much. But yeah, there was no way that it was completely accurate at any point. And yeah, sounds can. I mean, what about what do we have, BMG or what was it, where you paid 99 cents for a CD, but that didn't count towards album sales?
No.
So it's like, it makes you wonder, like, how many how many times platinum maybe over in reality did Motley Crue go, or so many other bands.
Yeah. Another funny story about you saying BMG. I applied for it. They used to have the cards. You could get the card, your membership card. I filled it out as Nikki Sixx. And they sent me the card with Nikki. I have it on my Instagram. I posted it, and Nikki saw it and started laughing. It's like, dude, that's classic.
Is it on
I never used it, though. I never used it. So just side note, I didn't, I wasn't the Matthew Tripe impersonating Nikki Sixx and trying to run up online, but mail-in, whatever it was. Yeah, that's a funny little story about that.
That's funny. Did you post that on Motley Crueseum?
I did. Yeah, I'll tag you in it and show you the post, because I just found it when I was going through everything. It was in there with a bunch of crap. And I'm like, oh shit! I just thought I threw it away. And there it was, and N6, and an account number that you would order. You would use that card to order those, and then it would charge it or whatever, however it worked. But yeah, I never used it.
I know. Cool. I got a lot of shitty albums on that BMG stuff, but oh well, it's 99 cents. Get it for one song, take it, trade it in, whatever it was. All right, jumping in at me for number 3. I'll need some help on this one. Of course, Dr. Feelgood might surprise some people, but yeah, I think at that time it was just that ultimate pinnacle, and probably the best selling album artwork T-shirt, I would think. And last night I was watching a cool series that GQ put out on their YouTube, and it had Mike Myers, and he's sitting there. It's talking about singer or actors' most famous roles. And of course, he's talking about Wayne's World, and there's Garth, and he's talking about the brilliance of Dana Carvey playing Garth, and the Motley Crue Dr. Phil T-shirt.
Yeah.
So that was, I think, the first one that wasn't one of my brother's shirts that I actually got for myself was the Motley Crue Dr. Feelgood album work. And yeah, it was just cool, iconic. The colors, I always dug kind of the greens that they threw in there, and really playing off the I always forget the damn name of the doctor symbol, but to, put the skull on there, make it look menacing and everything else, which, kind of, we think a general practitioner or a doctor, quite opposite of the doctor that they're talking about. So I thought it had this real cool juxtaposition with what they were presenting on the album. You go, Dr. Feelgood, okay, well, that's nice. And it's like, no, it's not the Feelgood that you think, and really for that time, I know we weren't going to get too much into the songs, but just the band was in their recovery period. I mean, they were firing on all fucking cylinders, and it was well documented. Interesting, because they could have went down that Metallica route if it was filmed in the same way at the time. I'm sure that the tensions were really, really high. Makes me think of the Metallica documentary, Some Kind of Monster, and it was really interesting. They held it together, and of course, working with Bob Rock, who just one of the most brilliant rock producers ever. So that artwork, it's one of the iconic things. You see it, what it is. There's no question about it whatsoever. It probably could be one of the more recognizable logos, top 50 logos of all time. If you look at that, people know that is the Dr. Feelgood album.
Yeah, totally.
Do you know who did the artwork on that one, Jesse?
Again, I do. And for years, when I did the research, I put it out there a lot, actually. And it's on my Instagram when I painted the replica bass drum head to give credit to the original artist. And just so many people, because I know that back then, these artists, they worked for album companies, that they would be hired, and they just got paid a flat fee. They didn't get points or anything like that, like a record producer, something like that. So that album cover goes out, and then they get their money, and that's it. Now on to the next project. So I really always wanted to that, and a couple of the album covers that are on my list here. That's one of them. The original artist to come up with the idea was, I believe, Kevin Brady.
Yep,
the tattoo artist that tattooed them up on Sunset Strip Tattoo, which is his idea of using, like you were saying, I can't remember now what they call it either, but taking the winged skull, making it a dagger, adding the snake wrapped around a dragon head, whatever that is. It's funny. It doesn't really look like a snake head, but the body does. But I can't remember the artist's name. It's killing me now. I didn't write this down, but it's so cool. Such a cool album cover.
Well, here's what I pulled up. Power of Google, right? Whatever the truth for the switch, it was decided that famed tattoo artist Kevin Brady, then working at Sunstrip Tattoo Parlor in L.A., should be brought in to do the artwork alongside an illustration by master of puppets artist Don Bradingham.
That's it. Yep.
Yeah. Nikki Sixx is quoted as Kevin had tattooed us for a while, as well as others on the scene like Ozzy, Billy Idol, and Sean Penn. Sixx went on to say he was very talented, so why not? Seemed like a good choice, and it worked out very well. Of course, one of the most iconic album covers of the 80s. And
Yep.
Carduceus, that's the symbol, the doctor symbol that they emulated it after.
Yep. I do know. So the way we're in the beginning of that, where you mentioned they decided to go with the original album cover was supposed to be, which ended up being a T-shirt and a poster, was Mike Wilmot, the creator of Alistair Fiend's Doctor, at that where he's got the scalpel.
Yeah.
And the operating room scenes behind him. That was supposed to be the original album cover. That's what the band wanted, and I think they brought it to the record company. Mike told this story, and he's another great one we got to get on, because I've wanted to talk to him, and I've actually gotten to work with him. Him and I have collaborated on some stuff over the years, and he's a great dude. He worked for like Hot Wheels for a while and stuff, but he was telling the story about how that was supposed to. He was kind of crushed that it was going to actually be an album cover, and I don't know if it was like the art director, whoever it was with the label, and Elektra at the time just didn't think it was maybe a little too dark. Because I think instead of he had to change the scalpel out from a syringe. There was a couple little things, and I think they just thought it wasn't, they just didn't want to, marketing wise, it wasn't going to work as well as bringing in somebody else to do something different.
It was a little too Motley Crue is what they thought, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
The same label that said, go ahead, put out a satin pentagram. Of course, at that time, Elektra had changed hands as far as who was in charge there. So, that's just the way that it goes sometimes.
Yep.
All right. So where are we at? We're at number 2.
Number 2. All
right. What do you got?
And my number 2 is Dr. Feelgood. Even though we just talked extensively about it. The only thing I'll throw in that we didn't was what else was really cool about them. I mean, like, just again, whoever the art director was and put all that together. The tiles, those green tiles, throughout the album cover, and then the photos on the back that are kind of like on the doctor's desk. And then that was kind of like the end of an era for artists designing logos.
Yeah.
Now it's just, people say, "Oh, what font is that?" There was no such thing as a font before a computer.
Yeah.
Coming from that background, this graphic design background, you had typography and type artists, and creating an alphabet, creating those letters and stuff like that. That's not, that Motley Crue logo is created. I believe it was Kevin Brady as well.
Yeah.
That came up with that, with the skulls, the melting skulls on the ends, which I'm kind of pissed that they took those off for like the stadium tour now. I don't know if they're trying to simplify it so it reads better, but it just kind of looks goofy, I think, with the 2 little hooks on the end without those melting skulls. And that's actually what I use for the logo for the Motley Crueseum. I take one of those melting skulls and crossbones on top of the pentagram, which I think they used it on a pin or a patch or something a few years back.
Yeah.
It's just cool, man. It was, growing up, that's what I would do, is draw all my favorite bands' logos. And that one was so intricate, it was a script, but it had all this drop shadows and outlines, and just there's just so much involved in it. But it looked cool. It wasn't overdone like some of the death metal, the ink splats now when you see like death metal bands, and stuff, like black metal bands, you can't even read it.
I know. It's like you're a true fan if you can read it, and they all kind of blend together. And you bring up a great point about script. Like my brother being a designer too, to throw him out here again. Second shout out, big bro. Okay, so don't give me any more shit. From what I understand, I'll have to ask him, I think he has a font that was one that he created. And I know that you've kind of done that too within your work. Is like you said, these weren't standardized things where we could just sit there and punch it out on Photoshop, download a bunch of different fonts, and boom, there it goes. It was, an artist had to create that overall arching look. And even the inside too, we forgot to talk about the cool stuff that everybody in a straitjacket was classic.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, our perfectly insane band here.
Yeah. So, and then that's the thing, it's just to stay on that topic. None of the albums we talk about, but all the albums they did in the 80s, those aren't like their first logo. Somebody drew that logo out.
Yeah.
I think they were ripping off Quiet Riot, but we know they haven't. They've been guilty of ripping off bands. But that logo is. I just watched the Randy Rhoads documentary. Quiet Riot's logo, even on the bass drums, Tommy had Motley, black outlined, solid black crew. Yep. Quiet Riot, they had the same thing. So that logo, somebody drew that up. That slanted, block-looking letter style was drawn out. Even Shout at the Devil, that's not like a standard. Someone made that so it was not copied easily. You might have typed it out on something and tried to draw it out, but it wasn't the same as some other stuff on there. All those albums, if you look at those letterings, the girls, like, oh, that's not just like a regular script. Yeah. Someone came up with that and drew that out, and then on the back, all the lettering matches it. It wasn't just typed out. So a lost art that a lot of people, I don't think, realize is how it was done back in the day, and the 80s was like the last era of it.
Yeah, once record companies and the CDs started coming out, album artwork went from vinyl to smaller, and it just became less important, unfortunately, which kind of sucks. And now in the digital age, you get a cover art. That's pretty much it, which sucks. I think for guys like us that I love to dig in and go, okay, who produced it? Oh man, this track, somebody else played some of the bass lines, and somebody, did acoustic guitar. They, as kind of interesting stuff that they would get in there if they would give it credit, because we all know Vince Neil didn't play harmonica on Smoking in the Boys Room. But we'll touch on that another episode.
That keeps popping up a lot lately. It's funny you say that.
It's like, well, Steven Tyler plays harmonica. Just put that Vince did. Okay.
And live, it was Fred Saunders backstage. The security.
But we'll touch on that on another episode.
Chimeras. Yeah, sorry.
No, it's cool. I'm gonna make notes here. More episodes. Vince didn't play harmonica. All right. My number 2, Shout at the Devil, man. It was the album that really got me into Motley Crue, scared the hell out of me. Being about 6 years old, knowing that a pentagram, like, we had all the parents in uproar about everything that was going out music wise, and probably just helped Motley sell that many more records, but scared the shit out of me. I remember the needle hitting the record, hearing in the beginning and looking at that, and then opening when you hear Nikki Sixx, the brr, right, and seeing them on the inside and just thinking, these are the most gnarliest freaking dudes I've ever seen. And Nikki, and especially Mick, scared the living shit out of me. So it was really simplistic, but it's so effective, and it got it across, regardless of what the juxtaposition to what Shout at the Devil is actually about. It pissed off enough people, which Nikki is brilliant about doing that a lot of these things are so intentional that maybe we just go, oh yeah, that's cool. No, there was an intent behind it, and that vision that he always had, and it just pissed people off and grabbed your attention. And I just thought it was the perfect simplistic thing for the album to have that representation.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. And the only album I think maybe you know, or you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the cassette was different from the album,
Right.
the LP, the vinyl, because I had the cassette first, which was all four of them, like kind of the inside with the gatefold, but quadrant in the top and bottom. And I don't even think I ever saw the album in stores because I was a kid. When I was a kid, I was tapes. I didn't get into vinyl till later, but all the other albums look exactly the same.
Yeah.
Album, vinyl and tape, and so I guess that's kind of why too it didn't really make my list because the cassette that I had, it was a photo of the band, it was still cool, but then it was different too from what the LP. I like the LP a lot better with the black, satin black, gloss black pentagram. It's just it's classic.
Yeah, per my recollection too, even for the CD, you could only get where it had Motley Crue, Shout at the Devil, and then the quadrant photos. I don't think they ever put out the satin pentagram for a CD, which is a total bummer, man, because it was so freaking.
I think they might have on this new run that BMG put out the remasters. I think that might. You know what? Because I saw him in Newbury Comics. Shout at the Devil was the only one that was already missing. Somebody had already bought it. They might have done that on this new run. I don't know, but yeah, you're right. CDs were the same way.
Yeah, now we got
first CD I ever bought when I first got a CD player was Shout at the Devil. I had to get that.
I had such a broad range of musical tastes. I think it was my first couple of CDs, maybe I think was Girls, Girls, Girls in there and like MC Hammer. That's where my musical taste was at the time. I go from Dancing on Glass to
Can't touch this
Hammer, right? Yeah, can't touch this. All right, hell of a mix there, guy. Let's throw out an honorable mention. You got one that still stands out, maybe didn't make your top 5?
Yeah, well, we talked about it before we hit record. Decade of Decadence.
Yeah,
just because it was, reminiscent of the punk era, with the way they had the lettering, and then just I loved at that time it was like the band moved so fast. Every album was a different look, but this album had greatest hits, whatever compilation, but it had photos from all that era, and then like at that time. Never before seen stuff. Obviously, again, not having the internet, and at that time, if you didn't like have every magazine, these were photos that really blew it from personal collection, old flyers and stuff like that. Just everything. I mean, I looked at that thing for hours, for days. Just keep staring at that, and it folded out like a poster size, and there's just so much cool stuff on that, and the new songs on that I loved.
Yeah,
Primal Scream, Angela. Rock and Roll Junkie, which was on the not Ace.
Ford Fairlane.
Ford Fairlane, right?
Yeah. Vince Neil played Bobby Black.
Bobby Black.
Yeah, and it's funny because if you remember the movie, Vince Neil, with the scene where his character dies, he goes, "All right, Los Angeles," but they're at like Red Rock in Colorado. They're not even in LA.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that amphitheater is in LA. That's
right.
Because LA's only really got like the Hollywood Bowl for the most known amphitheater, and then where they do like Indio, lots of festivals and Coachella and all that shit there. It's like, that's not LA. that's
I know. It's funny now. It's like it seems like nothing's filmed in Hollywood or California anymore. In the stuff that's supposed to be, it's all now filmed like in Georgia. Like even the Dirt, when they filmed the Dirt, it's like in Louisiana, and they had to recreate the Sunset Strip.
Yeah,
and it was like growing up watching like the Dukes of Hazzard. They weren't Hazard County. They're the rolling hills of California. You can see in the background, or like in the back lots of the stages, they're like recreating like the South. And now you watch like Cobra Kai or Stranger Things, and they're supposed to be in the Midwest or West Coast, but everything's like filmed in Georgia now. So it's kind of funny how things have changed.
Yeah, it's like Georgia and Toronto are the hotbeds, the hubs for it now. Like, walking all in Georgia, and it's like, okay, it made sense for the story, but let's put it here. It's more affordable, and they're like, yes, please come do your production here. Interestingly enough, my bonus one would also be the Decade of Decadence. I thought I loved too when they put out the documentary of it. They used a similar artwork, but just different coloring.
Right.
And I agree with you. That kind of harkened back the irony of, the Sex Pistols anarchy in the UK, and very much like the Sex Pistols album, where it was like cut out of the newspaper, put up there, which once again, I think was really intentional in their thought process. I don't know.
Yeah, they covered Anarchy in the UK was on that, right? That was the cover song.
Yeah, so it was quite interesting that was the thing. And of course, the Dr. Feelgood, we saw the makeup get stripped away, but there was still some bigger hair, and that started to go. Nikki Sixx went from the big hair to the really kind of long hair, and I think he even had like a rat tail look in it. And Mick got a little more, which kind of how I think of Mick. The awesome little gnarly dude, top hat, and that
was when Tommy shaved his head.
Right. He had the mohawk.
Yeah, well, on the sides, he had the mohawk, like him and Nikki mid Dr. Feelgood tour did the metal mohawk where they had still long hair shaved on the side. But then I think it was Decade when he kind of cut it shorter. So it was more of a mohawk.
Yeah.
I remember that from that video.
All right, my man.
Actually, in that. That's Nikki shaving his head in that one.
Yeah. Well, you're up, number one. I got a feeling we're going to both hit number one again.
I think so too. It's definitely going to be Theater of Pain.
Yep, Theater of Pain.
Yep. It's just
you first.
Me first. It was my introduction to the band, really. So there's that. But still, it's the color. And again, with Dr. Feelgood, you're going off of a theme and Motleyizing it. You took the comedy and tragedy masks and you put the pentagram on there, and just the way the artwork was done was just, and again, I don't know the artist's name. And for years, always put it out there because I don't want to claim that that's my artwork. For people that don't know, if people are seeing stuff, that's really cool. Who did that? I did it, but it's a replica copy. And we had talked before about Mick's guitar in the Home Sweet Home video has it. Tommy had it on the bass drums. It was just and this is where they just totally changed their look.
Yeah.
I don't know how many fans they lost that were metalheads and Judas Priest, Metallica loving, thinking that Crue was this metal band, and here they just totally, pull the rug on from underneath them, and they're wearing pink, or Vince is wearing pink and polka dots and stuff.
Nicky with the stripe look that matched his bass guitar, and
yeah, totally. And that, and then not even realize until years later that he totally ripped that off from Pete Way,
right?
Heroes, and Steven Tyler with the striped suit. Again, Nicky, great at borrowing and making it his own, and just pushing it out to it was funny because you look at that stuff, and now I look at it now and I go, well, they copied this, they copied that, but they did it way cooler.
Yeah.
And then it's paying homage to your heroes growing up.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That it was definitely like the homage thing, and why wouldn't you? It's kind of like what you do now with a lot of your stuff. Like you said, you've been busy painting those Kramer guitars with that artwork, and for me, it was once again like just continued with it. It's simple, but it's not. And unfortunately, I never got to see that tour. I didn't really see Motley Crue until when Tommy first left, unfortunately. But from people that I talked to, like Theater of Pain, that tour, that headlining one was a barrage for the senses, which really plays into that, the whole idea of what it was about, what they threw out at people. And if you go back, listen to the episode I did with the gentleman who wrote the Crude play, he talks about that extensively, that he saw that show and it was just this barrage of light and sound, almost disorientating. And that's kind of that awesome juxtaposition that they presented.
I liked his take on that, man. Because he's informed in theater and all that stuff and educated, and that was great hearing his take on that, man. That was a really good. I listened to that after he posted it. It was really cool.
Yeah. And we'll have to do a talk with him too, because he can break it down a little more intellectually. But yes, my favorite album as well, and I loved the cover when I was a kid, but then once I saw the Home Sweet Home video and Mick playing that Kramer, and just that cool shot that kind of swoops in where Mick's doing the solo and he turns and it just shows the face, you know, with the artwork on the guitar. It was like, that is the coolest fucking thing I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
You know,
and that video too, man. I think that video set the stage. There maybe was a couple of videos before that, like maybe the Scorpions or something, that did like a live montage of like, you know, the band being on the road. But I feel like after they put out Home Sweet Home, like everybody did it. You know, you had Bon Jovi, Wanted Dead or Alive, was this, and Wayne Isham was the director of that one too. I think, you know, it was just like everybody wanted that. Every rose has its thorn. You know, all the ballads looked like a Home Sweet Home video. You know, but they were the first, I think, to really, you know, again, do it better. And then everybody tried to copy it, and it just wasn't as good. You know? Well,
and the look of it, if you remember back, a lot of it might have been the band set up on their stage and how it appeared, but there was no crowd. And you're right, Wayne Isham, which, boy, I think I know someone that might be able to connect us with him, because my daughter's actually in a video he directed. I'll tell you more about it off air. And he just had that thing. It was like, let's capture the overall look, and he did it again with the, you know, on Girls, doing the videos, you know, with into the Dr. Feelgood album, that live look. I mean, I'm drawing a blank what video it was where they put the camera in the ball and it just went out in the crowd.
Same old situation.
Thank you. Yeah. And it's just like, how freaking creative is this? Let's capture the crowd, that essence. And
I think he actually I think he did the uncensored video. I think he's the one that put that all together. That was his camera crew and everything that was doing that, I'm pretty sure.
Well, guess what? We just coined another episode. We'll have to dig into the uncensored video.
Yeah. Yeah.
So recapping the list coming down, of course, mine, number 5, New Tattoo, number 4, Greatest Hits, number 3, Dr. Feelgood, number 2, Shout Out the Devil, number 1, Theater of Pain. What was yours again, Jesse?
Number 5, Too Fast for Love, number 4, Greatest Hits, number 3, New Tattoo, number 2, Dr. Feelgood, and number 1, Theater of Pain as well.
Absolutely. And hey guys, if you're listening on Spotify, you can let Jesse and I know what were your top 5. I put the question up there. Unfortunately, you can only answer that on Spotify. That's just the way that it works, because Spotify is cool and they're a little bit ahead of the trends of getting the interaction. But throw it up there. We'll talk about it in a future episode, what list you guys threw out. Jesse, people want to check out Jesse's Customs, Motley Crueseum, all that stuff. How do they find you, brother?
Instagram is probably the most updated. So Jesse's Custom Design. And then the Motley Crue collection is Motley_Crueseum.
Yeah.
Playing words with the museum.
And it's extensive. One of these days, I'm going to be able to afford to travel, and I'm just going to come out and we're going to go through you. That's all it's going to be.
Yeah, I'd love to. And you know, it's funny. Most people that, you know, when they come in here and they see my stuff, they're novel fans and 80s music fans and stuff. But it's rare that like a Crue fan, you know, sees it. So it's always fun to be able to show it to someone who really appreciates and knows what they're looking at, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you, man. And of course, thank you, fellow Crewhead, for tuning into Crewcast. We're, of course, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get podcasts. Give a follow on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at Crueseum. And if you want to connect with Jesse, those links are in the podcast description. Again, his custom work is freaking amazing. He does do some different things, so reach on out. But he's just a brilliant designer, man, and I'm digging it. Like I said, it showed my brother, and he was beyond impressed. So keep up the great work, and thank you, everyone. Crew had the best. Fuck the rest.